What's up everyone on the internet? Thank you for making this video part. I'm so excited to upload this one for you guys because for this video, I wanted to review one of my favorite animes of all time, which is Sword Art Online. Honestly, I don't know why it took me this long to do this review, but I guess now's probably a good time to start binging on another show now that Star Wars The Clone Wars is finally over. And with the latest season set to debut in July 2020, now would also be a good time to get caught up with this show before I watch the big battle that is about to take place. But before we go any further, we need to go back to the beginning. So Sword Art Online debuted back in 2012, and the anime is set in the year 2022, where VR games have made it possible for players to fully dive into their favorite video games. We're in 2020, guys. Fingers crossed that we get to that point in 2 years. As it turns out, the latest fantasy game has made its big release, and the game is called Sword Art Online. So the game launches with about 50,000 players logged in, and as everyone's having the time of their lives, they suddenly realize one thing: they can't log out. As it turns out, the creator of the game decided to turn off everyone's ability to log out, and the only way for you to leave the game is that if you beat all 100 levels. However, if you somehow manage to die in this game, it's game over for real. And then the first season takes off from there as we follow Kirito the Black Swordsman as he sets off to complete this game, while also making some new friends along the way, including the ever so lovely Lightning Flash Asuna. And for majority of the first half in season 1, it's pretty sweet. Not only do you get to see Kirito go off on many adventures with his new friends, but you also get to see this character progress throughout the season. Kind of like in Skyrim when you kept leveling up your character after putting so many hours of work into it. However, I will say that as we get into the second half of season 1, the show kind of loses its magic as we now go from a fantasy adventure like anime into a more family related drama kind of show, as we see Kirito enter a new game where players are now fairies and can fly, which should be interesting because players can now fly and use magic. But as you get through the second half of season 1, you suddenly realize that the stakes aren't high enough and there's not that much action. Not only that, but we soon reach to a certain episode where one character gets a little too personal with another, which makes episode 24 a bit uncomfortable to watch. So while season 1 starts off pretty strong, it kind of struggles to stick the landing with its second half. But if you were able to get through that, we now enter season 2, which kicks things off with a bang as we now get to see Kirito enter the world of guns known as Gun Gale Online. True story, back in 2014, before I even discovered anime, I originally had this Samsung wallpaper on my phone which showed this kind of like anime looking girl holding a lightsaber. And I remember my cousin a few days later telling me like, hey, guess what? There's this cool new anime that's out that has the main character holding a lightsaber. And once I showed him the picture on my phone, he was like, yep, that's it. So it shouldn't be surprised that the reason why I got into SAO in the first place was that in season 2, we get lightsabers. But anyway, season 2 takes place a few months after the events of season 1, where a serial killer is let loose in this new game and is somehow killing players in real life. Determined to find out the truth, Kirito logs into this new game where he soon meets a sniper called Sionon, and the two do a little bit of detective work while they also enter in an all-out battle royale tournament where the killer plans to kill multiple players. And after the first story arc, season 2 manages to recapture the same magic that the first half of season 1 had. But as we enter the second story arc, the season kind of shifts gears as we now see Kirito and his friends go on a good old-fashioned adventure, and while the action is pretty good, it just doesn't live up to what GGO had. And as we get into the third arc of this season, we soon see Asuna get her own story as she soon helps like the small group of players achieve a small dream of theirs, while also going on a personal journey to fix things between her and her mom. So while this story arc isn't as action-packed as the last two were, it does have a lot of heartfelt moments, which actually made my mom cry a bit. So to recap, season 2 starts off big with Gun Gale Online, but then the season takes a small little sidestep as it goes off in a new adventure, and then the season ends on a small subtle note as it finishes its third and final arc. So to compare it to season 1, season 2 is a bit of an improvement. And then we get into Sword Art Online Ordinal Scale, which is the movie that I got a chance to see back in 2017. And it's also a good starting point for anyone getting to Sword Art Online, because within the first few minutes of the movie, you get a quick little recap of seasons 1 and 2 before you jump into this brand new story where video games and other forms of media can now be projected via augmented reality. But then yet again, there are some strange things going on with this new tech, which causes Kirito to do a little bit of investigation while also taking part in a brand new video game. So while the story is a bit repetitive because it follows the same beats as the last two seasons, it does however takes the strengths from season 1 and season 2, making this movie pretty damn awesome. I mean, the action, the music, the incredible callbacks to the first season of Sword Art Online makes this movie stand above the last 2 seasons. Not only that, but there is a moment in the movie that kind of reminds you of a moment in Avengers Endgame, and this movie came out back in 2017, and I never thought I'd say this before, but apparently Sword Art Online beat Avengers to the punch. So overall, I really love Ordinal Scale. Not only is it a huge payout for everyone who's watched the first 2 seasons, but it's also a good starting point for anyone who's interested in getting into the Sword Art Online franchise. Now that being said, we now enter Season 3, also known as Sword Art Online Alicization, and what good is a new Sword Art Online season without Kirito entering a new virtual world? Only this time, it's not a video game. As it turns out, Sword Art Online was only the first step into creating something much bigger. In SAO Alicization, Kirito dives into a new fantasy world known as the Underworld, which blurs the line between reality and virtual reality, and it is there where he meets a character called Yu-Gi-Oh, who is on a personal quest to save his childhood friend Alice. So to remind you, the only drawbacks that Season 1 and 2 had was that they would start off big, only to struggle with sticking the landing. With this 3rd season, however, it's actually the exact opposite. It starts off slow, and then it gets really good. Let me explain. What the creators did with Season 3 was that they actually treated this season as if it were a movie. For the first part of this story, the majority of it involves Kirito and Yu-Gi-Oh going on a quest to rescue Alice, while also laying the groundwork to help explain this whole new world that Kirito is in. And as we get closer to the end of Season 3 Part 1, the story tells the audience that a war is on the horizon, which kind of reminded me a lot about Game of Thrones. Remember when everyone liked Game of Thrones? But anyway, in Season 3 Part 1, the show mentions that the wall separating the human world and the monster world will soon come crumbling down. And when that happens, the underworld will enter the final war that will end all wars. Which is where Part 2 takes off, and oh my god, do they deliver on that note. One of my favorite moments in any fantasy movie or TV show is usually the deep breath before the plunge, which is where we get to see characters have these small little interactions with one another as they prepare for the battle that is about to happen. And as that wall comes crumbling down, the majority of Season 3 Part 2 is basically just a straight up bloodbath where we see a small army of knights go up against an empire of monsters. Also, if you can tell from the poster screen right beside me, you'll notice that Asuna gets into the fight as well. And oh my god, talk about power. So as Part 2 comes to an end in this 3rd season, the show teases the audience that Part 3 will kick things off with a very, very cool endgame / Return of the King moment, which will put this 3rd season above all the others when this show comes back in July 2020. Now overall, I am loving this 3rd season, and I'll go as far as to say that this 3rd season is practically the best one in the entire Sword Art Online franchise, and it's not even complete yet. Well, that's going to do it for this video, guys. I'll admit overall review for the Sword Art Online franchise so far. If you like what you saw, click the subscribe button so you can get all these updates from this channel. I'll see you next time with a brand new video. Bye-bye.